All right, we are going to walk through the setup of how y'all should be setting up all your in-ears. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up the app. So we're going to go here, and we're going to go DLive for you, and you'll see a pop-up right there, assuming you're on the right Wi-Fi, that you are on the mix rack, FOH mix rack. We're going to then go to our user, we're going to hit IEM, we're going to hit login. From here, we're going to make sure that we're on the correct mix. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit mix select, and then we will see right in this middle section what the mixes are labeled as. So we can go down and we can make sure that we're on the correct one. I am using pack 2, so I'm going to be on box 2. Then we're going to go back. You can see that our master here is turned up. So this is a previous Sunday that we recorded. All the channels are playing back into the in-ears just as if it was live. So let's first jump into the first thing that we should make sure we have all the way up. That is going to be the click and the guide. Not necessarily all the way up, like that's too much. But you want to make sure that it's nice and audible. My in-ears are going to be different than yours, but use this as a guide, you know? So I'm going to then pan this all the way to my left ear. That's where I like to have it. It allows me to kind of focus my brain on that when I need to. And it just kind of is so separate from everything else that's happening that it always pulls my attention. I can kind of just listen, not actively listen to it. It's just kind of there in the background running. Let's then bring up the guide, and we're going to pan that into that same ear. The guide doesn't have to be all the way in one ear. If you ever plan on taking an in-ear out, you will want to make sure that your click is panned all the way to one ear. Ideally the guide as well, because we don't want anyone out here hearing any of that. They shouldn't be. Okay? All right,
Refrain,
next,
kick,
there's the guide.
slowly build.
Next, we're going to get into the band. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the kick. And bring up the snare as well. Doesn't sound like he's using it right now.
Verse 2.
But we'll bring up these toms. Should be using those soon. Okay, let's bring up the overheads. That's where a lot of the energy in the kit is going to come from. So we want a bit of it so we can mimic the energy that's being brought by everyone on stage, but we don't need it cranked all the way up. It'll fill the space pretty naturally. Then we're going to bring in the bass.
Tag 1.
You want to make sure you have the bass because that's the support. If you don't have your bass in your mix, it's never going to sound good. That's just the reality of it. Let's bring up the EGs now. Now, since they start the song sometimes, you want to make sure that they are at a decent level that you can hear above the lesser important parts of the drum kit, which is, right around here to my ear. You can also hear that I have it panned a little bit to the left for that one. We're going to bring in the other one. It's going to be panned a little bit to the right.
Refrain. Cymbals.
That's a little too much. Okay. Let's bring in the acoustic. He also starts the songs sometimes, so we want to make sure we have him in. He's not playing right now, so we're going to bring in the piano.
Refrain. Bass. Build.
That's too much acoustic, and that's too much snare. So we're going to go ahead and bring that snare down a little bit. Go. Still too much acoustic.
Build.
That feels pretty good. Because he starts the songs, we want to make sure that we have it present, but it doesn't need to be the most present. So it's a little over top the AG, but it's not crazy. Make sure we have all that up. Make sure we have that up. I don't tend to pan the keys much. If I do, it's going to be very little to each side. I'll go ahead and pan it a little bit to my right, just to go opposite of the acoustic, since we only have one acoustic player, we only have one keys player. Then we're going to go into our tracks, and we're going to fill out the rest of the space just on the instrumentalists. So we're going to bring up the track percussion. This is the one you probably need the least of. Bring in the track bass, just in case. Back up the percussion, bring in the track guitars, just in case. track keys we use a good amount of. That's also where your pad is, so you want to make sure that's definitely present throughout, but it doesn't have to be crazy loud because some of it gets really loud later in the tracks, right? We're gonna then bring in the track aux, changes what's in there, just dependent on the song itself. So you can hear in this, the snare's still a little too hot, but you can hear that the click and guide are very much out on top. They're very present in the mix. They're not messing around with anything. So now we'll get into the vocals. So I already have them panned pretty much where I would have them. We have 4 vocalists, so I'm gonna mix those 4. Okay, so first we're gonna bring in our lead, which is Pablo for this song, so. And we can still hear him there, but he's not over top everything. So let's bring up the other vocalists now, so we can hear them a little bit. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we go. I feel pretty good about that. We can hear everyone pretty well. You don't need to jack things up crazy. So that's all present. Last thing is we're gonna bring in the room mics. So. That's where I like to have it. You might end up having it lower, higher. I like to have it there because then we can hear all the energy. There's Wendy. So you'll have inconsistencies with it, with vocalists, but there's not much you can do about it when you're actually playing on the track. This is about where I would have it if I'm an instrumentalist. Let me jump back again to that same section, and then I will make adjustments as if I was a vocalist. Okay, so for this part, we want to make sure that we can hear the vocalist just a little bit more than we could earlier, right? And that's so that we can hear all the harmonies that are happening, make sure that everything is covered, make sure that you're not accidentally stealing someone else's part or vice versa. So you can adapt to that if you can, and if you can't, I don't know, just kind of call them out on it, solve it next service, you know? All right, so I'm gonna just bring this vocal group up here. I feel good about that. And because I have it panned all the way to the left, I can still hear the click and guide present in the mix. I'll show you what it would sound like if you didn't pan anything now. But with it panned like this, you can hear a lot more, right? Everything's a lot more defined as to what's happening around you, okay? Me personally, even if I was singing, I would probably run the vocals a little bit quieter. If you have a good spread, stereo-wise, if you can place all that, you should have a much easier time being able to pick out all these different parts, especially the more you do it. If you do need to take out an in-ear, that is gonna throw off everything with that. So you wanna make sure that you still have everything coming into your other in-ear, but make sure that you're always consistent about which one you take out so that you can make sure that you're not gonna get that click bleed. Other than that, maybe I did a little too little of the vocals there. Let's bring them up a little more. A little bit more.
Ending.
So I think this is probably more where I would have it. I know the camera's going in and out of focus, but.
Refrain. Kick. Slowly build.
Yeah, so I'm able to hear everything here. Might even bring the tracks down a touch. Go ahead and do that. That's okay if you don't nail it on your first attempt. You can always change it. Once you're in service, it's a little bit harder. Kind of look like a weirdo with your phone on stage, but at the same time, you gotta do what you gotta do. Make sure that you are getting a good mix so you can give it your best. Okay. So the last thing to talk about in the mix is actually something that should always be up at all times because it's very important, and it's turning up your MD. So I'm going to go ahead and run back to the start of the song.
4,
I turned up my MD. You kind of want that as one of the loudest parts of your mix. So I'm going to... And then with the MD, you can either have it matched with your clicking guide, or you can move it all the way to your other ear so it kind of whips your attention off to the side, right? That's what I like to do. So we'll hear that in a second.
2.
There he is. Okay, that's a little too much, so I'm gonna bring it down.
2.
There we go. That's more in balance with the clicking guide, which is about what you want to shoot for with that.
slowly build.
DMD, there you go. You can also turn up your drum talk back a little bit. Just be nice to him, you know. Yeah, I think that is as good as we can do for right now.
Softly.
This is a quick, rough mix that I would do, and it sounds
Chorus.
pretty close without all the effects that I would run on a live stream. Sounds very similar to that balance-wise. I have the vocals out a little bit more than I would. I have, obviously, the click in my ear, but everything's kind of just working in a balance with each other, right? So if you're stacking your mix properly, then the highs, the most important things is like yourself, and then the clicking guide, and the kick and snare, and then a little bit below there is the lead vocalist, unless that's you. You want to make sure that you can hear them, but you don't need it happening all the time, right? And then with the lower levels, you can kind of just fill that space out. You don't need a ton of the keys in all the time. It might sound really good at points, but it's going to override your other stuff. It takes up a ton of space in your mix. So you want to make sure you have that to where you can hear it at the beginning of a song, but once everyone's in like crazy, you don't need a ton of it. You can just kind of have that balanced with everything around you, right? So same thing with the guitars, same with the acoustic. Like everyone has opportunities to start the songs throughout, but you don't need all of them in like crazy at all times. You can kind of stack it thinking about the dynamics of the song, thinking about, okay, I need this at a decent level so I can make sure I'm coming in right. And then everything else throughout, you can kind of just adjust throughout the first song of rehearsal, throughout maybe the second song of rehearsal. You'll have to adjust your balance on your lead vocalists throughout, figure out kind of a mid-ground on that. That's why I don't run my vocalists crazy hot, is so that they can have enough room to where they get louder during service. They can have enough space to where when they're singing backing vocalists, I can still hear them there. They're still present in the mix, but it's not overriding anything. And then when they're leading, they come out on top because everyone projects more when they're leading. So you want to make sure that you have your click guide, kick, snare, all of that way up here. Because if the click guide goes out, if we get off the tracks, you have to cut it real quick. You still need to be able to follow that. That should be everything that you need to make a pretty solid mix week in, week out. It'll change, obviously, but main thing is that you are able to hear the most important things like the click, guide, MD, and yourself. Everything else, filter in as needed, stack it as best you can. The kick and snare is another very important thing, but that's more in line with your lead vocalist, right? Like you need that present in case of flow, but you don't need it at the absolute top of your mix to where everything else, when those are hit, just ducks behind it. You don't want that happening. So, yeah.